When you're in the depths of pain during a triathlon, do you have any mental tricks to use to either distract yourself and help you get through it?
I mean, yeah, we all go through those moments in a race where you don't know if you can make another step, let alone the next mile or the next 5 miles to the finish line. But no, I mean, I just try and bring myself back into the little things, think about the little things, one step in front of the other, my breathing, my nutrition. Yeah, I mean, my head's usually full of other things like splits. Where's the next girl I need to catch? How far behind's whatever place? How am I feeling? Have I fueled enough? Am I pushing too hard? So I'm like constantly filling my mind with those sort of things. And yeah, you know, the dark thoughts do creep in and tell you to stop and that you're worthless and that you can't finish this race. But yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I know that I couldn't look at myself in the mirror if I gave in to any of those negative thoughts or those voices. So, you know, you just push through and there's always an end, you know, you get there.
Do you train with pro cyclists, or have you ever thought of training with pro cyclists?
No, I've never really trained with any professional cyclists. I don't actually really know that many of them, to be honest. I train a bit with Julie Dibbins, and she's pretty damn fast, so she's enough for me. And I train with some of the pro men as well, so I think keeping up with them is enough for me. Maybe if I was a really good cyclist or one of the top pro men, then I'd look at training with pro cyclists, but there's plenty of other athletes that are faster than me that I can try and chase after.
And final question. Women's triathlon at Kona has suddenly become very competitive since your Kona win with Julie Dibbins' arrival and, of course, CW. Have we reached a new performance standard? How many more female pros have the ability to win Kona?
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely when Chrissy came onto the scene, she changed the game a little bit. I mean, I used to look at Kona and think, yeah, I can run under 3 hours, no problem. And I could bike that, I can win that race. And then Chrissy came along, it's like, okay, you need to run under 3 hours, you need to bike under 5 hours, and you need to be a decent swimmer. So all of a sudden it's a real race out there. And not that it wasn't before, don't get me wrong. I don't want any hate mail. But yeah, I mean, that's just the standard. I mean, I think before Chrissy came along with the time I did this year, I probably would have been happy and walked away and said, you know what, that's amazing. I ran a 2:53. No one's ever done that before. I'm right where I need to be. But with Chrissy there, I'm like, no, I need to run under 2:50. I need to bike under 5 hours, and I need to keep swimming with that front pack. And I think it's a good thing for the sport. Obviously, there's other women. Julie Dibbins is really improving her run. She'll, I think, be off the front in the swim bike. I think she'll be leading off the bike this year in Kona. Carolyn Steffen, she's another really tough girl, second in Kona this year. Katrina Morrison really is an overlooked athlete who I've raced for my whole career and really just hasn't performed in America, so she's just not on the radar here. And I'm sure there's other athletes that we just don't know about yet that will step up and challenge us in Kona. So it's a bit of a changing of the guard a couple of years ago, and I mean, I think, yeah, Chrissy definitely is still leading that charge, but we're all hunting her down and closing the gap, I think.
Thank you. We have another microphone set up, so you don't have to yell. I would probably suggest coming up and grabbing the mic, asking a question, and we'll turn the speaker over to Mirinda.
Switch, it works. Yeah. Hi, hello. Yeah. Hey Mirinda, I did the Rev 3 yesterday with you, and I was just wondering if you give us like just a brief race, like a race report, how you felt each leg was and what you thought of the course.
You from South Africa?
Yes, ma'am.
For you, I will. Yeah, I mean, I was quite pleased with how the race panned out for me. I've had a busy off season and obviously a different year. I had to race an Ironman earlier this year. Now that the point system's come in, and there's a whole, I guess there's a criteria now to start in Kona. In years past, if you'd won, you got to start for the rest of your life, or if you're in top 10, then you definitely got to start the next year. But I mean, even winning, I needed to go and finish an Ironman, and I did that earlier this year in New Zealand, and maybe went in a little underdone, and I paid for it afterwards. And then obviously winning Kona, you have a lot of extra obligations, all good things, and things I wouldn't change, but you definitely, training sometimes has to be put on the back burner, and I'm not used to that. I mean, usually I go back to Australia and I do my off season, I have no interruptions, I come into the US season super fit and I'm ready and confident. And I went into the race yesterday not knowing what I was capable of, and so I was pleased. I got second, and being beaten by Julie Dibbins, who's a close friend of mine, is a lot easier than being beaten by some other women, because she is a friend. So I mean, I ran 3 minutes faster than I did last year. I don't know how we ran that much faster, but I mean, I had a great run, and I felt pretty good on the bike. I haven't been that comfortable on the bike yet this year, just maybe haven't done the work. But finally, yesterday, for the first time this year, I started to feel comfortable, and that's just given me a little bit more confidence with my preparation. And the last 5 weeks have been uninterrupted. I've been up in Boulder, Colorado, and been able to just train and do my own thing, and not have to fly off for any photo shoots or anything. So I'm just pleased that I'm back on track. I guess I'll give you a recap of the race. I got out of the water in about 6th position. I hovered around 3rd or 4th on the bike. Julie went off the front and had around 7 minutes. I was basically 3rd position off the bike. The 2nd place girl was only about 40 seconds in front of me. And I ran into 2nd in the first mile or less, and then thought that I'd be able to close it down to Julie, but I mean, she had a great race, and I only closed to within, I think, 3 minutes by the end. So still a great race. 2nd place, she had a fantastic race and was 1st, and I'm just pleased that we went 1-2. Anybody else?
Hey, Ronnie. What do you think has been the most difficult and also the most enjoyable races you've ever done? Other than Kona.
Damn it, that was an easy question. Most difficult, I mean, I really do enjoy Quasi, and it is one of the hardest halves around. Also, St. Croix 70.3 is one of the toughest races on the circuit. It's hot, it's windy. It's very similar to Kona, other than the roads are quite rough. You might lose yourself in a pothole at some point if you're not watching out. But I mean, that's probably the most enjoyable. There's amazing. I mean, they put us up in the homestays there, and they're amazing homestays. I mean, I've gone back to the same family for the past 4 or 5 years, and they're almost like family to me now. So, I mean, and it's in the Virgin Islands, so that's quite nice. I mean, that's one of my favourite races, but it's tough every year. I mean, this year I got 2nd, and I got 3rd, and I was struggling all day, but I probably will still go back next year just because it's St. Croix and you have to do it.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear this?
Yep.
So in a race like yesterday or like Kona, how do you decide how much of a leash to give someone like Julie Dibbins? You ride by power? Do you go by a feel or how you're feeling, or do you how do you decide that?
Yeah, I mean, I never really... I've started riding with power this year, but only in training and only for certain sessions. And the same with my Garmin. I only use like a Garmin for certain sessions. I like to race and train by feel. And I mean, that's how I race. And that's how I race on the weekend. And yeah, it's hard to know how much you can give. I mean, I would have thought that I would have been safe with giving Julie a 5-minute lead, but I mean, she took 7, and I mean, I had no say over it. But yeah, I mean, you're listening to those splits, but at the same time, you're racing the course and you're racing your own race. especially in the women's race. I think the men's race is a little bit different, and they race the other athletes, but I think the women were so different, and we're so spread out at the front end that, you get splits and you get updates, but at the end of the day, you're racing as fast as you can to the finish line regardless. So I think it's a little different for the pro women than it is for the pro men, and the way our race is evolving is that, you're just trying to get to the finish line as fast as possible, regardless of who's in front or behind you.
You had mentioned about training in Boulder. Do you think that athletes that train in higher altitudes have an advantage over those that don't? And do you think it's provided you an advantage?
I think that's really individual. If you didn't hear, he was just asking about whether I thought training at altitude was an advantage. And for me, I really enjoy... if Boulder wasn't at altitude, I'd still train there because I love the environment. I have great training partners. It's safe to ride. The roads are, the Rocky Mountains are right there. Obviously, you can climb, you can ride flat. There's trails everywhere. It's just a really great place for triathlon training. But yeah, I feel like I come down from altitude and, I'm definitely not breathing as heavy as maybe an athlete that's come from sea level. But again, that's really individual. Some athletes go up to altitude and they can't get in the work they need to get in. Therefore, their races will suffer. So for me, I've found a balance where I know exactly how much I can do up at altitude, and I come down and I feel amazing. I don't feel like I'm breathing heavy, and it's a pretty cool feeling when you nail that training at altitude. But it also is really hard to pull back and know when enough's enough, because it's really easy to do too much up there, and altitude sickness is not pretty. So
you've mentioned that thus far in your career you've been injury free. Seems pretty rare in this sport. I was wondering, what do you attribute that to? Is it the rest that you focus on, or something else?
Yeah, it's definitely really rare to be injury free in this sport. I think that's my talent. I think every athlete has a talent. My talent is I don't get injured. I can keep training every day if I want. Some athletes, for example, Chrissy, this is a freak. She does get injured, and she has maybe a couple other weaknesses, but that girl strolled into the sport and won Ironman on her first go. So her obviously strength is just her physiology or her makeup, and mine is that I can just train. I don't get injured. I've never had a day off training, or never had to have a day off training because of injury in my career. And I started the sport in basically 2000, 2001, more as a junior, and obviously building into it, but that's quite a long time to have been able to continue racing. And that's why I think for me it's so important to have those breaks, because I'm never forced to have a break. I don't get injured, so I don't get 3 months off where I can just sit on the couch and be injured. And I joke with my friends that sometimes I wish I got injured so I could just do nothing, but obviously I don't mean that. I'm really lucky. I've got good genes. I think maybe that's another advantage to being short. Short limbs. They're stronger a little bit, maybe. I don't know.